Thank you for joining me. My name is Sherry, and I blog at sherrygraham.com. I'm a homeschool mom of 5. I've graduated 1. I have 4 still that I'm homeschooling. And I love to blog all about being intentional, about homeschooling, about homemaking, about being a mom, being a wife, being a Christian. So many things in our lives, we need so much focused intentionality. And so that has been my focus on my blog, is to encourage you to be intentional in all you do. So today I want to specifically talk about menu planning. Now, most of us know that laundry and menu planning are probably the 2 most important it's the most critical things that we do as moms. If we don't have clean clothes and we don't have food to eat, there's usually problems. So menu planning is one of those things that we just have to get figured out. And it's also something that changes. I know for me, how I do menu planning now is really different than when I did menu planning when we first got married. I remember when it was just my husband and I, we were newlyweds, we would sit down and plan out a whole month's worth of meals. Of course, that was when we had we could get our groceries for the 2 of us for like $25 a week. I can't even imagine that. That hardly even buys our bread and milk. So anyway, we would plan out a whole month at a time. We would have our dinners all planned out and our lunches, and we were so organized and had it all figured out. And then kids came along and things got more complicated. But I just want to share today some tips that I've learned, share some different options. I know I've shared before that I am working on a new book that talks about all the different systems that we have in our home, that we have to make those decisions ahead of time, how we're going to handle these different areas in our lives so that we can go about just doing those things and not have to try to decide at the spur of the moment how we're going to handle something. So menu planning is one of those things that you do need to have some kind of a system in place. And that's going to depend on your personality. It's going to depend on how many people are in your family. It's going to depend on your work schedule, how much time you have. Lots of different things are going to depend on it. So I'm going to share lots of different ideas today. Please don't think that I'm telling you that there is only one way and the only way. So there's lots of different ideas of things that you can do. So let me start by maybe just sharing some different ways that people can do menu planning or different approaches that people can have. One way is just planning a week at a time. You sit down maybe at the end of the week and you plan out your menu for the coming week. I know a lot of people that like to plan their menus based on grocery sale ads, what's on sale for the week, what meat they can get cheap. That works really well for those that like to do that. Just kind of plan a week at a time. And then you just plan a week of meals, go get your groceries, and you have your menu for the week. Some like to plan 2 weeks at a time and go grocery shopping once every 2 weeks and do that. Some like to plan a whole month at a time and go shopping and get all their groceries once a month and not make multiple trips to the stores all the time. So, there's lots of different ways you can approach this. Again, there's no one right way, and it's going to change over time depending on, your life changes, and it's going to change and evolve over time just because your life is changing all the time too. So let me go through, maybe to start with, let's talk about just some real basic steps that you need to take to start your menu planning. And I know this may seem very trivial at the beginning, but when you're first starting out, you need somewhere to start. So I've got 4 steps that you take to get menu planning in place. The first step is to list your favorite meals. Now, you can recruit your husband and your kids in this, but simply write down, make a list of all of your favorite breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and try to come up with as many as you can come up with. Don't feel like you have to come up with like a month's worth. If you can even just come up with a couple weeks worth of meals that your family likes, that would be great. And keep that list in your notebook. If I like to keep a notebook with menu ideas and different meals our family likes. I also keep a recipe book. I'll show you in a little bit. But that's where you need to start. Ask your kids what kind of meals they like and make a list of all of them that they like. Then from there, step 2 then is planning out your menus. Now, like I said, some people like to plan out a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, a whole month at a time. Take the number of meals that you have. Maybe just start with your dinner meal. Don't worry about breakfasts and lunches. I know for many of us, breakfasts can be kind of somewhat the same things every week. There's not as much variety maybe in breakfast. Just depends on what you like to do and how much you like to cook. And lunches a lot of times are easier meals, eating up leftovers or sandwiches or something. So a lot of times I don't actually plan my lunch. I usually plan breakfast and I plan dinner. But maybe when you're first starting, just start out with dinner. Just plan the dinner meals and start with that. And then once you get going, then you can add the other meals. So to plan out your meals, you simply, and I have a lot of free menu planning forms on my website. And when I get this replay done and put on my blog, I will have a post with links to all those free menu planners and different resources you can use to help with your menu planning. But you simply get a menu planning form that has the days of the week, and you write down, take your list of meals that your family likes, and you write down each day of the week what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you plan all of those, however you're starting out. And one thing to keep in mind is that sometimes you're going to have the same meal every night. The same day every week. For example, Friday nights are usually pizza night. I know a lot of people do that. Whether you order out pizza or make your own homemade pizza, that is a constant. So every Friday night we have pizza. Another constant for us, for our family, is Thursday mornings we always have muffins. And so that's just a constant in our family. And you probably have similar traditions or something in your family. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind when you're planning out your menu for the week are what nights are you going to be busy? Maybe you have, church, or you have sporting events, practices, whatever. Keep in mind what your calendar is going to be like for that week so that you can plan your meals accordingly. Maybe you need to plan an easier to fix meal or a crock pot meal on an evening where you have a lot going on. Maybe if you have an evening where you don't have anything going on, you're going to be home all afternoon, maybe that would be a good night to maybe try to stick in a brand new recipe that you want to try. So keep those kinds of things in mind when you're planning out your menus, because there's nothing more discouraging than to get up in the morning and realize that what you planned for dinner that night, there's no way you're going to have time to fix. So plan ahead, think about your calendar, what's going on that week, and plan those meals accordingly. All right, the next step 3. So the first one is to make a list of your favorite meals. Step 2 then is to get those meals down onto a weekly menu planning form, and as many weeks as you want to plot out. I know one way that I did this, it's been quite a few years ago, was that I actually had 4 weeks worth of menus. I didn't really plan the menus according to, well, I guess I did. I planned them according to what kind of schedule those days would have. So I kind of knew that there were certain days of the week I needed to plan an easier meal. So I had 4 weeks of menus planned out. And then I went ahead and I did the grocery lists that I would need to buy, all the produce, all the groceries I would need for that week was all listed. And I kept those with the menu plan and the shopping list together. And then I would just rotate those. So one week I do my week 1 menu, the next week I do the week 2 menu, and then I would just keep rotating them. And I did that for quite a while. And I had when I had quite a few little babies, it was easier because I didn't have to think. I would just open my notebook and pull out the next week's menu, and I didn't have to think through what I was going to fix and what recipes I wanted to use. It was just an easier option. You don't have to do it that way. That is just kind of an extreme that I took because I needed that planning done ahead of time for me at that season. So you have your favorite meals list, then you put them onto a menu planning form, scheduled out however many weeks you want to plan. Then your next step is to gather your recipes. Now, if you have recipes that you make all the time, you're going to kind of know what you need. I know I've gotten in probably a rut with my menu planning because I don't even ever look at my recipes because I kind of know what I need. But if you're trying new recipes, or if you need kind of until you get going, you need to have a system. And here's that word system again that I've been talking about. This is another area where you need to have a system in place for keeping your recipes, whether these are favorite recipes in a cookbook that you have, recipes you found online that you want to try, recipes that are on recipe cards that you've had since you were, a teenager that you collected from family members, or ones you got when you were married. There's all kinds of papers that you could have with recipes all over the place. And if you don't have a system for keeping them and kind of organizing them somewhat, you're never going to use them. You're never going to be able to find them when you want them. So there are some different options that you can do. I know at one time I did put all my recipes on recipe cards and had them in a recipe box, divided it by meal type, I think. And then I would pull out the cards for that week and put them in the front. So I had all the recipes for that week, and I had all the recipe cards. I could go through all the ingredients and make my grocery list. So that's one option. If you like something physical, a recipe card, and you like doing that, that is an option. But that's going to mean every recipe that you like out of a cookbook that's in your cupboard, every recipe you find on the internet, it's going to take writing it out on a recipe card and adding it to your recipe box. So that is one option. Another option is to keep a recipe notebook. And this is what I have gone to. I hate to even show you my notebook because it's falling apart, but this notebook is just a cheapy Walmart notebook, and I filled it with sheet protectors. And this notebook actually only holds my breakfast and lunches and dinners. And then I think in the back I have a few cleaning type recipes that I use, like homemade cleaners. But what I have done is, and if you can see, I just typed up, some of these are out of some of my ebooks that I've done, some of the recipes. Some of them are ones I found online, but I just simply filled this notebook with sheet protectors. I have the breakfast recipes in the front, and then my lunch and dinner recipes after that. And when I find a recipe that we've tried and we love it, I will print it out and it goes in a sheet protector. I know that all of these recipes that are in sheet protectors are ones that we have tried and we love. So when I'm going through trying to find some ideas for meals, I know those are trusted recipes that I can go to. Now, one way that I have a system that I've put in place just for me, because if you're like me and you're on the internet and you love, finding new recipes to try, what do you do with those recipes that you want to try and you haven't tried them yet? One thing that I have done is I print them out, and I keep my recipe notebooks beside the microwave in our kitchen. There's a little shelf, and I just keep them right beside the microwave. And I guess I should say I also have a notebook for desserts, and I also have my Trim Healthy Mama notebook. So I have lots of recipe notebooks. But what I do is I print out any recipes I want to try, and I put it on top. I make a pile on top of my microwave. So when I'm ready to try a new recipe, I just go find one on there, and find what I want to try. And then after I've tried it, if I like it, then I'll get my notebook out and put it in a sheet protector in my notebook so I know it's a good one. If I don't like it, I just throw it away if our family didn't like it. So that's just a system that I have put in place using just a notebook. And I like that idea because it's not a lot of work. You know, if you have a recipe in a cookbook that you like, you can simply just scan a copy of it and then stick it in your notebook. You don't have to handwrite it all out on note cards. Same thing if you find things on the internet. It's just real easy. It's an easy way to keep your recipes organized. Okay. Now, besides a recipe notebook, if you like everything digital, there are multiple different apps and menu planning type services that you can subscribe, pay monthly fees to subscribe to. There are a ton of different options that you can, you can use the recipes you find online and you can add them to your account, and then it'll create grocery lists for you, and you can plan menus, and there's a lot of different things. And if you enjoy having that digital option and you don't mind paying a fee, that might be something, that would interest you. But you need to have some way to get those recipes organized so you can use them. So that was the third step, is getting your recipes. Okay, then the last step then is making your shopping list. Okay, now, if you want to do like what I did, kind of the really extensive option, if you want to actually take each of your weekly menus, and if you want to create a specific shopping list for each of your weeks that you've planned out, so that you plan once and then that week's menu and shopping list is always there. And all you have to do then, and how you do that is you pull all your recipes for that week. You go down and you write down every single ingredient in those recipes that you need to make, everything from, if you're doing your full meals, include your breakfasts, lunches, and dinners too. But write down everything that you need and then type it all up, or however you want to do it. You can write it out, but make a complete list so that you have your shopping list that goes with that week of menus. And then what you have to do then each week is, when you use that menu, just make a photocopy of your shopping list and then keep the original. No, don't write on your original, but make a photocopy of your shopping list. And then you can add to that any other extra things, that you need, like, toilet paper and toothpaste and shampoo and, stuff like that isn't groceries necessarily, but you may get on your shopping trip. You can go ahead and add that to it. And then you've got your shopping list that you can just take and you're ready to go. So that is one option. But if you do not want to do that, you still sometimes need to look at those recipes for the meals that you have planned, so you make sure that you don't forget any ingredients. I told you before, I don't really look at my recipes much anymore because I kind of remember what things I need, and I kind of know what food items I need to keep on hand in my pantry. So, but there have been times where I have totally forgot an ingredient and I go to make the meal and I'm missing something, and I end up having to run down to our little local store and pay a lot more for it. But anyway, it is important though to look at your recipes, make sure that your list is complete before you go shopping. So that is your master shopping list. Another helpful tip that I would share with you is that it might be helpful to create a master shopping list of all the basic essential items that you typically buy throughout the month. You can write down things like, and just go through, the meat and produce and dairy and, cleaning items, self-care items, like shampoo and soap and paper products. Go through under each of the different areas of your, of the store, and write down the things that you typically buy every week. And when I'm going through and making my grocery list for the week, I always kind of go to that, even though I've gone through my menu and I've thought through in my head what we're going to need for lunches and what we're going to need, for my husband's and my daughter's, they pack their lunches, things I'm going to need throughout the week, for breakfast that I have planned. When I always go back to my master shopping list and just kind of glance through it and make sure I didn't forget something like, oh, we only have a pound of butter left. I better get more butter. Or the shampoo's getting low. Maybe I better go check and make sure we have another one in the cupboard. And if we, don't, then I can go ahead and add that to the list. But it does help to have that master shopping list so that you can kind of glance through it and make sure you're not forgetting anything important that you might need to pick up that you just didn't think about. So that's another option that you can do. Now, we talked a little bit about digital. Maybe I'll share a little bit about how I am doing my menu planning right now and maybe why I've switched a little bit. I used to be all paper. I would write everything out and put it on the fridge every week. There was a period of time where I did 2 weeks at a time. And then the off week, I only went to the store to get like eggs and milk and maybe some produce that was fresh. But other than that, the main grocery shopping was just once every 2 weeks. But the way I'm doing it now is I'm actually using Google Calendar to schedule my menus. And it's going okay. I think I'm getting in a rut because I'm not trying any new recipes because I planned all my menus out and they're repeating. So all I have to do is just pull up my Google Calendar and I can see, what I have planned for the week and make my grocery list, and I can see what our schedule is all at the same time because it's all together on Google Calendar. So that is what I have been doing, scheduling the menus that way. And with the Google Calendar, you can repeat an item. So I can't remember when I set it up, if I had like maybe a month or two of different menus. And so at least dinner items, I think I had a couple of different. And so I would set up an event, in Google Calendar for that day, label it dinner, or breakfast. I don't plan lunch. I plan breakfast and dinner, but I would enter it and then I would have it repeat like once every other fifth day of the month or whatever. So it would repeat like every other month. And anyway, I think it's been good because I haven't had to even think twice. But at the same time, sometimes I find I get in a rut and then I end up reverting to fixing something different because I just get tired of the same things all the time. So I need to adjust too. Like I said, it's one of those things where you just have to continually adjust as you go along and kind of just see what works for you at the moment. And if it's not working, then just tweak it and try to figure out a way that would help you get it done. I just know that it's a lot less stressful when at the beginning of the week what meals you're going to do. In the evening, when I do my my evening routine, it's kind of looking at the meal for the next day, see if I needed to get any meat out of the freezer. There's just a lot of freedom and peace that come when you have some of those things thought through ahead of time, and you don't have to be, 4 o'clock trying to figure out what you're going to fix because all the meat's still frozen. And, we all know what that's like because we've all been there. So I hope this has encouraged you. I hope it's encouraged you and given you some pointers on how you can get your meals planned. I've got lots of tips. I know I've got some posts on menu planning tips, things I've done like cooking meat ahead of time. I used to do that more than I do now. I used to buy huge packages of hamburger and I would cook them in my crock pot. I would just let it cook on high until it all got cooked. I'd drain it with a strainer and rinse it. And then I would put them like a couple of cups in a Ziploc bag. And that was, a meal's worth of hamburger that I could use in a casserole or on pizza or tacos or whatever. I would do things like that. Same thing with chicken. I would grill a bunch of chicken and put it, chop it up, cubed it up, put it in the freezer so it was ready to put in casseroles or pot pies or whatever. Lots of different things. You get into things like freezer cooking. That's another option that you can do to help relieve some of that stress of menu planning by doing some freezer cooking, or what do they say? You double your recipe. Make 2 recipes when you're making dinner and stick one of them in the freezer for another day. That's another thing you can do. One tip that I use all the time, and I don't remember where I heard it, but it's how to handle leftovers. This is another one of those systems, those decisions that you have to figure out ahead of time so that you know what you're going to do when dinner's done. You have leftovers from dinner and you don't really have a plan for them. Most of the time, I would just think, we'll stick them in the fridge. We'll eat them up, for lunch or whatever. And they would get stuck in the fridge and they would get buried. And when I would go to clean out the fridge, at the end of the week, here were all these leftovers that are kind of gross and nobody ate them and it was a waste. And I hate wasting food like that. So I heard this somewhere of taking all of unless it's something that that you are going to eat maybe the next day, put it in the freezer. And they got like an ice cream bucket or a big Tupperware bowl, and they would put everything in there from vegetables, leftover vegetables, to leftover meat, to pasta, rice, anything that was left over, they would just add to this Tupperware bowl. And when it got full, and depending on your family, if you have a smaller family, just do like maybe a quart size Tupperware or a 2-quart size. But when it got full, then it was time to make soup. And I've done this. We used to do it a lot on Sundays because it was a real easy meal. I could just pull the stuff out of the freezer, put it in the crock pot, add a couple quarts of water, and add some taco seasoning and my homemade chicken bouillon powder, and just let it cook on high until we're ready for church. And by that time, it was mostly thawed out, and I would give it a good stir, turn it on low, and let it just kind of heat while we were at church. And we get home and add some chips and cheese to it. And it was a really yum, kind of a taco type soup. So that was a tip that I heard somewhere. I think they called it their once in a lifetime soup. And my kids can attest to that, because whenever you make something like that, it never tastes the same twice. I even have been known to put like leftover baked beans and stuff like that, leftover hamburgers chopped up, leftover sausages, all kinds of stuff. You can just chop it up and add it to your soup, and add it to the freezer container, and then you have soup, instant dinner almost for you. So just some more tips for you in your menu planning. There is something with leftovers, and that is one thing that I probably have not done, but I know some families like to actually plan one meal a week of just leftovers. So, that's something that you can consider too when you're going through your menu planning. So, well, does anybody have any questions that you want to type into the chat? I'd be more than welcome to answer any questions that you have. I hope this has helped you and encouraged you. And I will get this replay and I will get it posted on my blog with links to everything that I've talked about and the resources that would help you. I'll get that taken care of so that you can have this to watch later and have all the resources that would help you to get your menu planning done. So, all right, if nobody has any questions, I hope this has helped you. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, and I do enjoy doing these videos. I enjoy helping you and encouraging you and helping you get some of these systems in place so that you can live a joyful, peaceful life and to be intentional and to be all that God wants you to be. So thank you again for joining us, and I will see you next time. Thank you.